Anti-Japanese demonstrations in China, sparked by Tokyo's decision to purchase a chain of disputed islands, has now forced major Japanese firms to halt operations in the region. Factories, shops and restaurants have been attacked across the country. James Corbett, an independent journalist living and working in Japan, is here on the programme to tell us more right now. It's good to see you today. Can you just explain to us, basically in layman terms here, what's the significance of these islands and why has their ownership triggered such an extreme reaction in China against Japan?
It's a good question because these islands have been basically unpopulated and remain unpopulated. So it's a question of what people are getting excited about. And really, for an awfully long time, these islands were claimed by Japan and no one really cared about it in the region until recently. In the last few decades, there was natural gas and oil deposits that have been estimated and believed to be near offshore of those islands. So suddenly they became quite strategic. And as a result, in the early 1970s, both China and Taiwan started to lay claim their own claims to those islands. So they've been in sort of a diplomatic limbo of sorts for the past several decades now. And the status quo has been that they're nominally belong to Japan, but the Japanese people haven't really thought about it. The Chinese people haven't really thought about it too much until quite recently. And we've seen, of course, China's growing naval presence in the South China Sea and in the East China Sea, where these islands are located. And that's really started the process of having the sort of diplomatic scuffle over this. And that has really boiled over in recent weeks, especially when Japan nationalized the islands by buying them from their private owner.
Well, I've been doing some digging up today. It seems that this controversy over the islands, it may not just go back decades, it may go back hundreds of years. Apparently, due to some ancient maps, even Japanese maps suggesting these islands do actually belong to the Chinese, and that's going back a few centuries. One question is, though, here we have this dispute ongoing. China's marine surveillance fleet now announcing that it will increase patrols and law enforcement in the region. They have over 200 vessels, 9 enforcement airplanes. Is it possible, do you think, that both sides could consider dialogue to calm the response? Because no matter which way you look at it, the aggression and the tension is certainly on the up.
There's going to have to be some sort of dialogue, and one certainly hopes that it will come quicker because the demonstrations are starting to get out of hand in China and some real damage is being done, of course, not only to Japanese interests, but even to owners of Japanese restaurants or people who drive Japanese cars in China are now being attacked in these protests. And as a result, we're starting to see the mirror opposite here in Japan, obviously not rioting or anything of that sort, but there is an increase in the right-wing nationalists driving around with their loudspeakers, with their anti-Chinese slogans, etc. So it's definitely creating increased tensions. And the only way out of this is for some sort of diplomatic breakthrough. And it doesn't look like the two parties are really willing to come to the table at this point. And in fact, just recently, there was one of the largest breaches of the space around those islands by the Chinese Navy, with I believe 6 vessels actually trespassing into what is considered, or what Japan considers to be their territory around those islands. So it's definitely increasing. Tensions are definitely going up.
It's increasing tensions. It's showing no sign at this point of fading away. In fact, it never takes long in various parts of the world, particularly in the Far East, for America to get involved. Just today, on Monday, the U.S. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta saying that the U.S. and Japanese officials have agreed to put a second advanced missile defense system in Japan aimed at quelling a threat from North Korea. Others now saying it's going to be directed directly at China. That's really going to help, isn't it?
Well, it's destined to inflame tensions even further. And absolutely, the idea that this new X-band radar is going to be really aimed at North Korea and not China is about as silly as saying that the missile defense shield going up in Europe is not aimed at Russia. I think we all know that it is expressly aimed at Beijing and Beijing's intercontinental ballistic missile capabilities, which are only increasing as they continue to spend more and more on their military capabilities. So it's definitely going to have an effect in ratcheting up tensions even further. Until recently, there's been a lot of anti-U.S. sentiment in Japan in terms of getting the forces out of Japan. But with this recent Chinese tension, it might actually make the Japanese want more military presence here. So I don't know. It's going to have a very destabilizing effect on the region.
All right. Independent journalist James Corbett joining us live here on the program from Osaka. Many thanks indeed. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Rory.